So moving
Uh,
forward a little
one
bit.
last thing on that too is this sounds, it's there again, one of those cliche things that you've heard a million times, but surround yourself with people you want to be, right? Not necessarily people that you are. Like try to aspire to the ones that, and surround yourself with the people that you would aspire to be, because that's going to ultimately drive your succession as well to become. It's everybody can say they're not competitive, but if you have someone that is super successful and you're learning from them through osmosis and just being around them, you ultimately will get better at what you do. Networking is one of those, right? I actually absolutely hate the networking piece. Like it's just not something that I enjoy, but it's something I know I need to do. So I surround myself with people that are marketing geniuses, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a little tidbit that I can add to my own repertoire as I go.
Okay, good. That is sage advice, Nick. We should, I wrote that down. I'm up to 9 lessons learned today. All right. So I think the last question for you two guys is about growth, right? So finding the right clients, finding the right fits, walking away from clients that aren't good fits. You know, how do you do that? How have you done that in the past? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I will double down on finding new clients, and a lot of times the right clients through fractional executive peer networks. I'm part of another very low cost, we're talking like $10 a month group of fractional. They call themselves a CXO group, and it's a lot of people out here in the West Coast, but it does cover the whole nation, and it's smaller. But I get a lot of referrals from COOs and CFOs, fractional COs and CFOs that are already there. They have already engaged the culture of the prospect for us. So that means that the client is already open to the idea of fractional leadership. That's gigantic. If they come to you first and they have never had a fractional anything before, it's going to be more difficult. It's going to be a much, much bigger cultural change that you have to engage upon. But if it's already been done, and in particular, I found if that COO or CFO is already in place, that means that the budget and the financials are going to be available to you. And so if they come to you and they say, I hate my MSP, I hate my ERP, I hate my, all these systems, I want to rip it all out and replace everything. So I need you to come in and do that. Wow, okay, that's a lot. And you kind of say, well, this we have some help that we could do here, but let's talk about it. What are the main problems? Are you open to discussing them? And 9 times out of 10, it's not truly a rip and replace situation. It's going to be a let's better utilize and train on what you have, because a lot of times the cost of change can be the bigger barrier of getting things going. But you want to be able to have those discussions early, particularly with the CFO at the table and the COO, so that you can get it built into the budget so that things can happen, as well as paying for yourself. So when you're engaging with that part of the community, it creates those types of right clients for me. In the past, I tried to just go straight the industry model and say, well, I know a lot of these guys need help, I'm going to go right in. And they looked at me as more of an MSP. And they basically said, well, can you also fix these computers? And, why don't you just do everything? And I was just like, well, that's not what we're talking about in the project here. You have to look at the value prop, and they understand why you're there. And so a lot of times, if a client does come to me, they feel comfortable, they say that they want me to expand the services. I say, that's great, let's talk about it. And it's something more technical in the weeds. Those are the ones that I then have to say, I think you're ready to hire an IT manager, somebody else. That's not going to be me. Let's go through that succession process, because maybe their foundational needs have been met.
Got it. That makes sense. So Nick, on the MSP side, how would an MSP create and then grow their vCISO practice?
Well, from an MSP perspective, it's exactly what Sean was talking about, right? It's the land and expand, but becoming advisory, like that advisory partner, if you will. No, there again, like Sean said, if they say, well, you're an MSP, you should be able to do everything under the sun. There again, knowing the limits of what you're comfortable with providing advisory services for, or what I would always consider or talk about the deflecting, right? Redirecting and deflecting is what Sean was talking about as well. Is, hey, we're still talking about this particular function. From an MSP perspective, you have to make sure you stay within the verticals that you're well known for. Otherwise, you can get into the legality issues, and if you give the wrong advice or make the wrong decision, then you burn a bridge, right? If something goes wrong. From an individual perspective, it's a little bit different. Knowing, like, just going down the list a little bit, knowing how much you can provide yourself and your time to your clients will define the number of clients. So there is no right number for, it's not a universal number for the number of clients that you have. You could strive to have 100 if you really wanted to, and in that you would have to then make sure that you're expanding not only yourself but your practice to include those other trusted individuals that we talked about earlier within your network, so that you're spending less time per one, but then you're also directing and managing those people within your practice to do the same value and provide the same value that you would if you just want to do it directly yourself. It all comes down to the monetary negotiations that you have, right? You have to make it make sense for you and your lifestyle and the things that you want to do. And there again, knowing when to say no. There could be somebody throwing tons and tons of money at you saying, oh, I'll pay you $700 an hour to do this. But you have to recognize that it's a dumpster fire and you don't want to get into that mess, right? Or you say, let's have, like Sean said, let's have a conversation and break this down into more bite-sized pieces where we can split out some of these deliverables versus it being that dumpster fire. Let's take care of the fire. Let's put that fire out first. Then let's work on painting the dumpster. Then work on replacing the wheels,
fireproofing the dumpster.
Right? Fireproofing the dumpster, right? Let's make a process to not dump grease in the dumpster anymore so it doesn't start again. Like breaking it down more into those bite-sized chunks that works within your verticals, and then you can expand if you would like to, if you feel comfortable doing it.
Got it.
One quick add there too, Steve, is it's a great point that Nick makes, where you can monetize and passively monetize your relationships around deliverables. So there was a question earlier on about what are the basic types of deliverables, in this world. When you get started, for me, it's really a project plan, and then you get through this phased approach to a dynamic roadmap. And the dynamic roadmap then can lead to milestone-based billing points, as Nick made, so that each milestone could be managing different teams internally or externally, and the external ones could easily be monetized so that you're getting referral fees, you're getting potentially subcontractor fees. All of those pieces are heavily available, and especially in the labor markets that are around right now, a lot of the global developers and whatnot, they are happy to give you a cut or a discount on those types of projects where you're still giving an awesome rate to the client, but you're also getting a piece of that. Therefore, you're strengthening your relationship, you're making it more trustworthy. Everybody's getting a little bit of a piece of the pie, and it's not just, well, I'm going to hand off this relationship and hope that it works. You're actually engaged in making sure it works, which is what the clients want. They want somebody accountable to make sure that a development project as a CTO works, or a new ERP implementation with that implementation partner stays and works. Because a lot of times when you just wash your hands and step away, all of a sudden you check in and say, hey, how did that ERP implementation go? And they're like, it didn't work at all. Like, those guys suck. What happened? And you really do want to stay engaged and make sure that those things happen, but also, make sure it's worth your while.
Yep.
Right. So you're staying on as a manager, but you're bringing on a person to do the work, and your referral fee is paying for your management time to manage that client and manage those projects.
Yeah.
So we're getting a little tight on time. We have this one question that I really liked about who are your favorite clients? Why did you like them? What was good about them? If you could just 30 seconds on an anecdote of those, then I think we're getting pretty close to wrapping up.
You go first, Nick.
Yeah, I can. So I actually have two favorites. The first one is the open-minded client, right? Not ones that are very dead set in their ways, that are prescriptive, that they want you to do something very specific, more so wanting to have a relationship and take the value that I bring to them, and they're able to and willing to change or pivot if they need to, right? That's kind of my favorite one, is the having the trusted relationship. The second one is I would call them heavily funded, just past maybe B or C round funding, right? Mm-hmm. Those startups that are somewhat established, but you're able to come in and say, okay, as you continue to expand your business and continue to grow, these are the processes and methodologies you have to have in place to scale as your business grows, right? So it becomes the nuts and bolts and the basis for their business to grow. Because if they're successful at the beginning, they're also going to come back later on and say, hey, you really helped us out.
Right.
Let's work together again because you helped us get started in the beginning.
Right. Okay. All right, Sean, you have the last closing anecdote.
I'll boost that as far as capital raise. There's a lot of different flavors of clients in their stages of capital raise that makes them great to work with. If they've done a friends and family raise and you're really like feeling beholden to helping out that community of investors, God, I love those types of clients, because they are really going to bend over backwards to make sure things work, and not just like light, money on fire and just walk away. That's in contrast to a lot of the private equity and VC raises that can be out there. Now, there are some of those that are also very good, and they'll bring in good people. So you do want to talk about what stage are you in your funding and your capital raises. So I love those. And I also, really love nonprofits and being able to help out a company that's doing something good for the community. You can see that impact as well. So there's a lot of like good there. Those tend to be not always the most profitable jobs, but they can be a little bit more soul profitable.
Yeah.
So you
the psychic gratification is good. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So we've been going through the audience questions. There's anything, pressing, guys, shoot it over and we'll get to it. I think the wrap up, what did we learn? If I go back over my notes, like I said, I have probably a dozen now, but the first one I heard was being a mentor to a client and adding value by training the junior staff so that you're working yourself out of a job, was Sean's comment, which I thought was a great, plan to put in place. The second lesson I heard was having a methodology around your practice, things that you do well, things that you don't do well, right? And that dovetails into the next one, which would be building the community. So finding resources who are experts in areas that you're not, so that you can bring them in as you need them. The whole peer group discussion was, I think, a great lesson. And I think we need to do more on that and answer some questions for folks. The setting the right expectations, having a tight scope, having a tight contract, that clearly seems to be a very valuable thing. Doing your homework up front when you start your engagement, so that you do the assessments, you turn over the rocks as you start, so that you're not not surprised as you're going through. And then one I wrote down that you guys sort of hopped over was having a change order process. If a client does want to change, what's the process to do that? How does that extend your engagement? How does that change, what you're doing and who you're doing it with? So I will jot my 5 things learned down, and we'll distribute them when we distribute the slides out, so everybody can actually add to that. I think we'd like to take a few minutes just to thank Corent Technology, the sponsor. They help us with the artwork and the promotion and the marketing. And, for those of you that have clients that use either private cloud or have created a SaaS product, working with client or at least talking with Corent would be worth your time. They will definitely save you time, money, and allow you to build your practice, right? Allow you to get a quick hit with your clients by being able to save them a big chunk of their monthly bills. So thanks again to Corent. Follow-on actions. If you are not members of the LinkedIn group, please go up on LinkedIn, look up query on vCIO best practice. You'll find the group there. The group's grown nicely over the past few weeks. And again, I would say we'd much rather have really good quality people in the group than, having thousands of more junior folks. In the Corent world, they have a referral program. It's called Cloud Leader. Again, if you do work with AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, any of the cloud vendors, or if you do SaaS work, you should take a look at that. Inner Onion, this is a self-aggrandizing plug. We did a survey last year on what partners want. So what do MSSPs want? What do MSPs want from their vendors? And we're going to do a refresh of that, and we'll send that out. And we are definitely looking for input and feedback for those of you that work in that MSP space or that consultant space. What do you want from your vendors? How can your vendors add more value to you and your clients? There's been a couple questions about how do we make sure that the quality of vCIO stays high. And there's an organization called the National Society of IT Service Providers. And their reason for being, their goal in life, is to raise the level of MSPs and technology, IT technology consultants. So that's what they do. That's why they're in existence. And if you're not aware of them, please go check them out. Smart people, good, experienced people, nice folks, and helpful people. And then the last bullet is for you to jot down on a piece of paper, what are 3 things that you'd do tomorrow or later today that we talked about on this session. The studies are that when you learn something, if you take action within 24 hours, you're much more likely to be successful at that. So the last piece of follow-on actions there. And then just thanks for everybody. Sean and Nick, any final closing comments?
Yeah, a couple of the last questions that came in, I think from Joshua, were around timelines and other aspects. It's very variable. So I will say that look to the peer communities to talk about that per industry. And one that we haven't mentioned yet is Fractionals United. That's a great free starting point to be able to get and dip in and talk and communicate. So you look at fractionalsunited.com and you can get a join for free. So that'd be my closing statement.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Nick, you get the last word.
Yeah, you know, appreciate everybody being able to join us. You know, these are something that I really enjoy because we not only get to, you know, tell people about our experiences and how to better them, but you know, I look at it as a learning opportunity from Sean too, right? Because we're both kind of in different worlds, but somewhat the same, and it bleeds over. So it goes back to just try to be as network oriented as you can, right? Making those connections. I tell people I'm the most extroverted introvert ever. But it's something, if you want to be in this type of position or in the industry, you have to be able to at least talk to people and be able to network a little bit. So you know, that's probably what I would say is the last comments. And one last plug I would say is learn technical writing if you're going to do this too, right? Going back to kind of what Sean was just talking about, creating the SOWs, proposals, all the contracts that you have signed, make sure that you understand the verbiage in there and be able to write it yourself, right? Because ultimately you're held to what your signature is associated with. So
Great. Okay, so I will wrap up. Thank you guys. Fantastic working with you. Fantastic on the prep. I think this session had some really valuable lessons here. I would say we need topics for the next one. So put your thinking caps on. Let's do a little brainstorming and come up with some topics. I would say to the audience, hey, if you guys have topics for the next session, let's definitely get those out. And, you know, I appreciate everybody's time and everybody's participation. And, you know, I think the more communication we have, the more valuable this is all going to be. So everybody have a great day. Thank you again. And we'll see you on the next session. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, everybody.
thanks, everybody.